Hey guys, I hope you're doing well. Today I am talking about flexible working and I hope that these ideas spark some good conversations within your company or your team. I break flexible working into 4 different areas and they are where you work, when you work, what you work on and how you work. The first 2 are very popular at the moment with things like hybrid working and the 4-day work week movement. The latter 2 we don't talk about enough. But I believe it's the combination of all 4 that can make a big difference in the way you experience your working day. The first is where you work. And of course, there are companies everywhere that are experimenting with the different models in this at the moment, whether it's hybrid working, remote first, or trying to transition fully back into the office. And while we are in this experimentation phase, which will go on, through 2023, I think it's really important to make sure that you are making the most out of it personally. And what I mean by that is that, number 1, you are making sure that your working environment, your physical environment is set up well, wherever it is that you're working. If that's at home, if it's in a remote working hub, if it's in the office. We can kind of forget about this as time passes, but it is always important to make sure that your environment supports your work. The second thing is for us to be mindful about how we are spending our time in the different locations and if we're making the most out of them. So there might be more work which is more suitable to when you are on site, for example, and other work when you are working remotely. Now, I know this depends on how much autonomy you have over your schedule, and I'll come back to that later on. But where possible, try to make sure that you are doing the best work in the best possible location. And finally, when it comes to where you work in 2023, keep the communication lines open with your manager and, with any other groups in your company that are looking at that working model, because it's only when you talk about what's working well and where there are challenges that you can feedback that into any potential changes. So where you work, as I said, might be determined at the moment by your company policy or your team guidelines. But, even within your own setup, maybe take a moment to check to see, is there anything that you can improve to make it easier for you? And is there any conversation that you can have now that you have been doing for a while, perhaps? The second area of flexible working is when you work. So perhaps you have a typical 9 to 5. That could be changed by choosing to have core hours, for example, 10 to 4, and then flexibility around when you start and when you finish. You might decide to work longer days, Monday through Wednesday, so that you can work shorter days on Thursday and Friday. Or perhaps your company is adopting a 4-day week policy where you're hoping to do all your work during your standard working day, Monday to Thursday, for example, and not working Friday at all. A lot of business owners and people who are in senior positions that have a lot of control over their schedule might adopt a non-linear working day. And that means that you could end up working for a little bit in the morning, taking a break, coming back on in the afternoon, taking another break, and perhaps even working in the evening. Now, this one can get tricky if you're not clear about what you're going to work on and when, because otherwise you might find that you're always on. All of these different options when it comes to flexible hours means that you can look at what's best for you, for your team, and for the other people internally and externally that you work with. Unless your company is set up for asynchronous communication first, you are going to have to make sure that you and your team are still available when others are looking for you to some degree. So there has to be some hours of overlap. But it is always worth looking at, your hours and whether or not everyone needs to be in for all of the time at the same time, and if there's anything you can do there. At an individual level, with flexibility around time comes a responsibility on you to make sure that you are setting your boundaries, that you do know what you're working on, when you're going to stop working, and to put some routines in place to help you disconnect. Okay, so the third area for flexible working is what you work on. And we forget about this a lot. So you might have a job where 100% of your work is assigned to you by your manager or by somebody else. And that's your responsibility, that's what you do. But there's another option, and that's to have a portion of your time, be it 20% or 30%, that you can decide what you're going to work on. So maybe it's an innovation project, maybe it's spending time with another team, maybe it's exploring something new. And this flexibility around what we work on for part of the week is a great way to develop your skills further, to unleash your creative side, and to stay motivated, especially if your day-to-day task is monotonous, or indeed if it's very stressful. Another way that you can look at flexibility around what you work on is rotating responsibilities, and that could be as simple as giving a different person the responsibility for managing a project every time, or rotating the chair for a meeting, or perhaps rotating, a task that is particularly mundane and nobody really likes doing it. So again, having the option to move things around and to change things up, maybe week to week or month to month, is a really good way to keep things fresh, even if you're staying in the same role in the same team. The final way you can look at flexible working is how you work. So deciding in what order, in what way you complete your tasks. So this is, I suppose, giving members of the team responsibility for the outcomes rather than giving them step-by-step instructions on how to do different things and in what order to do them. This does depend on the job and it does depend on the experience of the person, but of course the flexibility in this area allows the person doing the work to maybe find better ways of doing things, to discover things that they wouldn't if they were just following a series of steps 1 to 10, and to have a better connection with their work. So just to wrap all this up, these 4 areas are connected and they do create an overall experience. I'm going to give you 2 extreme examples to show this. So the first is somebody who has got no flexibility around their working hours, what they work on, or how they do their work. So they have to work, for example, 9 to 5. They have to do a set of specific tasks. That is all of their job, and they have to do them in a particular order and in a particular way. And this person is now required to spend 2 days in the office, for example, and 3 days working from home. Now, to them, there is no difference in their day when they're in the office or when they're at home, other than perhaps a commute, distractions in the office, the cost of lunch, and all of those things. On the other end of the extreme, you might have somebody who's got flexibility around their start and end times. So they've got core hours that they have to work and they can choose what time to start and finish outside of that. They've got flexibility around what they work on. So they have a side project that they are researching a new area, for example, and they have got flexibility around how they do their work. So, when they do certain tasks and how they organize them and all that. So when this person is in the office, for example, 2 days and working from home 3 days, they might choose to work on their pet project for the days that they're in the office because they'll be around other people that they want to talk to. They might decide to do a lot of their meetings on those days rather than doing it all on the screen. And then they might decide to organise their at-home days to do some deep work and to have uninterrupted time. And they can do that because they have the flexibility. And of course, on the days they're coming into the office, because they have flexible start and end times, they might decide to skip the morning traffic or skip the afternoon traffic. And so these are 2 very different experiences of the first area of flexibility, which is where you work. Now, nobody has got full flexibility in any given area. So what I encourage you to do is look at the 4 and then scale yourselves from 1 to 5. So 1, no flexibility, 5, extremely flexible. Now, see where you're at and have a conversation with the team to see if you're making the most of the different areas and if you're using them to create the best possible working environment for you. I hope that was helpful. If you've any questions or comments, I would love to hear them. And until next time, stay well and have a better work day.